Game 1 of the Oilers opening round series against the LA Kings did not go as planned. The Oilers dropped the game 4-3. Obviously, you never want to lose a game on home ice in a best-of-7 series, but still, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button. This team showed over the last 2 months of the season that they are a very good team, one of the best in the NHL over that span. Here are my 3 takeaways from Game 1 between the Oilers and the Kings. Number 1, don't overreact. Mike Smith made a very, very bad mistake, and it cost the Oilers a goal late in the game. Still, over the last 2 months, Mike Smith was statistically one of the best goalies in the NHL. I think he's built himself up a little bit of leeway. If he has another bad game in Game 2, then yeah, you obviously go to Mikko Koskinen in Game 3, but I think Mike Smith has deserved the opportunity to battle back and get another start in Game 2 of this series. Jesse Puljujarvi was another player who didn't have a good game in Game 1. He was only credited with 1 shot attempt at 5-on-5. He didn't get a shot on goal in the game at all. He didn't engage physically like some other Oilers forwards like Kailer Yamamoto or even someone like Warren Foegele, but still, Puljujarvi throughout the season was a good top 9, top 6 winger for the Oilers, and I don't think there's any need to demote him down in the lineup. I would start Puljujarvi once again on the top line with either Connor McDavid or on the second line with Leon Draisaitl in Game 2. The Oilers need big number 13 to get going, and even though he wasn't great in Game 1, I think they should be patient with him. Same thing with Darnell Nurse, who wasn't good in the series opener as he returned from injury. There may have been some rust there. He made some really bad reads, and while he had some flashy rushes up the ice, he was not the defenseman that the Oilers needed him to be. Still, deep breath. I'm okay with letting Darnell Nurse play through this funk. I wouldn't dial back his minutes at all. The Oilers need him to be a top pairing D-man who eats 24 plus minutes a game. I think he can be that guy, and I'm not going to overreact to his poor game in the series opener. Some players didn't have their best, but the Oilers over the last 2 months were very good with this group. I think they need to let them just find their game a little bit in the playoffs, and I don't think they should overreact. My second takeaway from yesterday's game was that just playing fine or okay isn't going to be good enough in the playoffs. The Oilers weren't bad last night, but they didn't dominate the LA Kings for long stretches of that hockey game. There were some moments where it looked like they were starting to take over, but then LA would grab back momentum. Edmonton would give them momentum with a turnover in the defensive zone. They didn't have their A game against LA. And in the Stanley Cup playoffs, if you don't have your A game, you're not going to win very much. So again, just being fine, which I think the Oilers were last night, that's not going to get you very far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They need to force it a little bit more. They need to capitalize on their scoring chances. They need to have 10, 12-minute runs where they dominate the LA Kings like they did to other teams during the end of the regular season. Fine won't cut it. They need to be better in Game 2. The third takeaway actually gives me some optimism heading throughout the rest of the series. The referees are calling penalties. 39 power plays were awarded across the NHL on night 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs in the 4 games. That's almost an average of 5 per team. It's really close to it. If that can keep going throughout the playoffs, that is a good sign for the Oilers. Their power play struck twice in Game 1, and penalties were called on both Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. They drew calls in that hockey game, and that's not something we necessarily saw a lot last year against Winnipeg, and it was probably one of the reasons why the Oilers weren't able to grab a win in that series. If the refs keep calling it like they did in Game 1, I think that is a good sign for the Oilers because their power play looks to be going, and their penalty kill was solid in Game 1 as well. They need to be better at 5-on-5. There's no doubt about that. But if special teams continue to be a factor, and they will be if the refs keep calling it like they did in Game 1, I think that is an excellent sign that the Oilers will be able to push the LA Kings and eventually come back and win this series. What were your big takeaways? I want them dropped below in the comments section, and make sure you hit the subscribe button as well, and really just dig in and enjoy Game 2.